everybody. How are you guys doing?
Good, Chris. How are you?
I am good. Mike! Oh, I'm going to leave your picture right at the top of my screen, just so I have a friendly face. I'm not sure if it takes a minute for everyone to come in or not. Cool. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining today as we talk about just a philosophy of digital recreation during COVID-19. Many of you, I think I have met at some point over the last year. If you look at your lanyard from last year's NIRSA, you'll have the GEEX address on there, and we've been around for a little over a year in our beta period as we really have been working to progress the college esports space. So a little bit about me. Right now, I am serving on the NIRSA Esports Task Force. I am currently the CEO and founder of GEEX.GG. We're an inclusive esports platform that was built specifically for digital recreation, targeting schools and helping their recreational admins build communities as well as engage those communities with events. I spent 5 years as the director of the Wellness and Sports Center at Southwest Baptist University in Missouri. During that time, I ran all of the campus recreation. I was an alpha tester for imleagues.com, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and developed a really good relationship with those guys. And while I was working in higher ed, I realized that this evolving space of college esports had some real potential to start engaging students that, at least for me on my campus, we were not successfully engaging. And so one of the things that I did was begin looking at what other schools were doing and how they were engaging their campuses and starting to create programs. And through that, I became a founding competition council member for the National Association of Collegiate Esports, or NACE, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with as well. When we launched, we founded the 10th varsity esports program in the country, and had the first recruit from Alaska, which was kind of a crazy thing to have someone, my poor student from Alaska that came to the middle of nowhere, Missouri, that just had no idea what to do with our weather there. But over the last couple of years, I've gotten to know a large number of people on the game publisher side, on just kind of the professional esports industry side of things, and maintaining my connections and conversations with higher education, so that we can really work to try and build a product that specifically fits the need of this audience. So I currently do serve as a board member for LandFest, which is a charity land area network organization. So if you think about a bunch of nerds taking their PCs into one big room and hooking them all together with cables and playing against each other for a weekend, that's what that charity organization does. It has 15 chapters across the country, and specializes in building communities and then raising funds for local charities through that process. And one of the things that I'm very quick to share about myself is that I'm a lifelong student development professional. My heart has always been to help students grow during that transformative time of college. It was one of the largest times of change for me personally. The friends that I made during that time are still friends that I have, and every Saturday night, me and two of my best friends from school, the wives know when the kids go to bed, it's boys' night, and we get on and we play video games together, and have been doing that for almost 15 years now. So there is a massive value in gaming community, and it's something that in higher ed we've not necessarily connected to very well in the past. And so now with the current situation with COVID-19 and everyone working from home, and students not being on campus, trying to figure out how we keep them engaged is a very real issue. And so one of the things that I've heard from quite a few school admins is that COVID-19 has really created some fear. One of those pieces of fear specifically being student attrition. So students that maybe were kind of on the fringe with their academics, or not really sure about how positive they were coming back the next semester. And I think we all have seen the impact that recreation on-campus community has on those students, where a lot of times that relationship is what draws them back to campus. And so, with COVID-19 and social distancing, I think there really is a concern that students are going to go home and lose that drive and lose that motivation to come back to campus and continue their education, which really would be it'd be really sad across the board. And so the other thing is us asking, what does it mean to be a rec professional during these times? I can't remember which school I was talking with, but one of the things that rec director said on our call was, I don't even know what my job looks like anymore. It's such a different environment without people being physically on campus, that identifying what it means to be a rec professional has become kind of a new question. And some of the schools that we've worked very closely with through this last year, Mike Wozniak from University of North Dakota, we've got Zach Weyer from Georgia Southern, we've got Will Adams from Virginia Commonwealth University. Those three, among others, have been very involved in not only helping us to evaluate what type of product needs schools have, but really thinking about, from a recreational perspective, how do we create these communities? And now that we have COVID-19 forcing really a remote type of interaction, something that is digitally based like video games has a very new appeal. And so it's very much so an open conversation that's going on right now of what's the best way to engage students while they're away. But I think there's a fairly common understanding that there is great potential within esports and digital recreation to accomplish a sense of community and belonging. Whereas, that's not something that we've really had time to do in the past, invest in a completely new market as rec professionals. There's a really interesting announcement that was made yesterday from the director of the World Health Organization. And part of the reason that this announcement is a little ironic is that about a year ago, the World Health Organization listed playing video games or video game addiction as an officially recognized mental illness. There was a lot of pushback on that claim. Addiction to anything is really not disputed as being a negative item, but the World Health Organization was really backing this idea that we should be encouraging people not to play video games in one way, shape, or form. Well, this week, an announcement was made that the World Health Organization is supporting a movement called Play Apart Together. And Play Apart Together was launched this week by 18 different game publishers that have come together and said, look, during this time of social distancing, we can work to build relationships and communities despite the distance so that it does have positive impact on people. And the World Health Organization has said, you know what, this actually is an amazing thing given the current circumstance. So maybe people should play video games and connect to communities and stay indoors and keep themselves safe as well as keeping others safe. And so this idea that we can begin to use a medium that has sometimes been accepted, sometimes been rejected for a variety of reasons. But we can use this medium now during the current the current situation for good and for positive benefit, when there's really no other way for us to pursue that. So what we really have right now, and a lot of this, I guess I'll go ahead and precursor with the fact that a lot of this is my own opinion in having lived on both the higher education side as well as the esports side, and the common ties and the opportunity that I believe exists here. We have done everything we can to really support these ideas and claims with research. There's a lot of comparative research when we look at traditional recreational research or traditional community research on a college campus, but there's still not much research specific to esports communities intersecting with higher education. So if any of you are researchers, I would love to encourage you to find some ways to really advance this discussion with a qualified research type basis. But one of the things that is one of the things that really is commonly accepted is that students like to play video games. There was a Pew study done in 2012 that showed 70% of college students play some type of video game. Now, this information is about 8 years old. There has not been any new concise study that I have found. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but not one that I have found yet that shows that this number has changed. I've been learning from some of our friends in the high school space that number is actually showing to be higher in the high school audience than the college audience. So I think that the number of students who play some type of video game is actually going to continue trending upwards. If we think about the most popular games, which a lot of times right now we refer to those games as esport games, so one that can have some level of competition, that can have some type of tournament structure, one that can have a professional scene and a path to pro. We have estimated that around 40% of the total games played would fall into this type of category. These are also going to be the most popular games that are played on your campus. And so we're acknowledging the fact that of those 70% of college students who play video games, some of those are mobile games like Candy Crush. And I haven't seen anyone running competitive Candy Crush yet, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. So thinking about reducing that audience for the most popular games and how we engage the community with games, we're going to take that down by 40%, which leaves us 28% of a campus falling into an esport digital recreation category. There is no research yet on the crossover between physical recreation and digital recreation participants. That's something that we're going to be working on next fall in our partnership with IM Leagues to be able to begin providing some data about how those two audiences overlap and intersect with each other. But the one thing that we have found in both preliminary research as well as some early pilot schools is that between 8 and 10% of students that are on a college campus are presenting as new unique users to recreation when a digital recreation program is present. And so, with a national average being somewhere around, say, 35% of a campus participating in recreation, the potential is to raise this number as high as 43 or 45% for your total campus involvement. Which I know last year at NIRSA, many schools were talking about the decline in participation, the challenges in being able to raise participation, and esports or digital recreation. We'll talk about the difference between the two a little bit later, but the involvement of this new medium really provides access to a completely new user group that in higher ed we have not successfully engaged in the past. So it's important to think about the goals that we pursue in any program that we build. We all know that higher ed professionals and rec professionals have certain KPIs that they need to meet. Everyone has a boss, and that boss wants to see some hard numbers of how you are advancing the goals of the higher education institution. And so some of the primary ones for us are participation rates. One thing that esports has been shown to provide more direct access to is STEM students, which I know in traditional rec can be a harder population to target sometimes. But digital recreation really does resonate. And if I remember right, the research was showing somewhere around 60 to 65% of esports participants have a STEM background. The idea of really being able to pursue inclusivity and diversity among a new audience, there are a massive number of gaming communities out there and types of games that people enjoy, and these games bridge all sorts of chasms that have existed a long time, whether it be social, whether it be gender, like no matter what these divides have been, the medium of video games has shown itself to be able to bridge that gap. While I was still in higher ed and I built my first space on campus, which we renovated the storage closet off of our game room. on the college campus, and we put 8 Xbox Ones into the closet on the closet, which also held the watering heater and all of the bathroom plumbing, which was on the other side of the wall. So we turned this little closet into 8 stations. And for the first semester that it was open, and we were a fairly small campus, we had 250 unique users come into the space, and our enrollment was about 1,300. Of those 250 unique users, 142 of them had never been involved in any type of recreational programming that I had run before. One day while I was kind of in there gathering some feedback from the students, there was a group of football players, predominantly the offensive line was in there, and they were playing NBA 2K. And there was another student that was a computer science major. And when you think about, kind of the definition of someone that is very nerdy, like this guy fit it to a T. And I'm one of those myself. So I had a very close connection with this kid that was in there all the time. And he was a little bit awkward. He often spoke out of turn and kind of over the social boundaries that most of us know exist. And he looked to one of the linemen next to him and said, I can totally take you one-on-one. And of course the whole room erupted, and the guy next to him felt some pressure, like, okay, I guess we'll play one-on-one in NBA 2K. And everyone else gathered around, and through the game, I actually watched a friendship start to form between these two as they went back and forth and changed leads and really had even footing in a way that these two had never experienced before. And for me, that was one of those defining moments that I realized, man, like this video game stuff can really bridge some gaps that we have had trouble bridging between athletes and non-athletes, and some of just the typical stereotypes on campus. Being able to engage the community, of course, is an important part. There's even the opportunity for alumni involvement, which doesn't fall into many of your responsibilities, but it is something that can be brought to a campus of a way to include staff that have moved on away from campus. And then having these communication channels provides the opportunity for both mental health and health and wellness discussions to occur. And then probably the largest KPI for us, at the university is how we drive retention rates. And being able to measure with statistical accuracy the retention impact of esports on our student population is something that at GEEX we have a very strong desire to be able to make a reality. And through our partnership with IM Leagues, that's one of the things that we're working on helping schools aggregate more data next fall. So the basic question, how does it work? There's a lot of terms in a really foreign operating field for most school admins. Some of you probably have taken some steps to educate yourself, and maybe you've connected with some students on your campus and figured out, okay, this might be the way that we want to go. But for others, a lot of the words really don't mean much, and even things that in the gaming community are considered basic might sound a little bit foreign. So I want to go over just a little bit of what the kind of the current structure and an explanation of digital recreation and esports for noobs, I call it. Noobs in gaming language is a newbie. It's an abbreviation from like the 90s, but one that for many of us gamers has a very affectionate tone to it. So there is a fact: students play games they like. That's probably not news to anybody, but that is one of the core facts that often gets overlooked as a program begins. And as you start thinking about programming, do you actually know what games your students like to play? And so I always encourage schools to take the first step of identifying the popular games on your campus. You really don't have to understand what the games are in order to begin to categorize them and understand what is currently being played and where your largest communities are. The second step is to create a community hub to begin reaching and aggregating these different communities across all the game titles. Now, achieving this by yourself, if you have no knowledge of video games or video game communities, can be a really daunting task. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to engage the students on your campus that are knowledgeable, whether that's an esports club or a gaming club. Maybe it's a video game group, but on most colleges' organization pages, even for me as an outsider, I'm able to search and find a group of students that have listed video games as a common interest. And reaching out directly to those students can be a very, very positive first move. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of the how-to in creating those hubs here in just a little bit. 3, after you've aggregated your community, you're going to create events on a tournament platform for the communities. There are a number of tournament platforms out there that have been around for many years. GEEX, part of what GEEX does is operate as a tournament platform. We also operate as a way to create those community hubs and manage multi-communities in a single place. But really where the rubber meets the road for your program is going to be, how do you facilitate events and how do you organize and communicate with your communities? So one thing that is really important to understand about how these types of competitions and these programs work is that students play on their own devices and they play on the game publisher's platform. So if you think about a tournament platform like IM Leagues, you don't play football on the IM Leagues website, right? Like that would just be kind of weird. It's the same with each of these tournament platforms. You don't actually play the game on their platform. The tournament platform helps you connect the students and organize the students so that they can play an organized tournament with the game. But this often requires the students to own the game and either have access to their own device or own their own device. That's where the creation of physical facilities on campus sometimes comes in. But right now during COVID-19, if a student doesn't own the platform themselves and they don't own the game themselves, then they're not going to be able to participate. And so that's where we really come back here to step 1 of identifying the popular games on your campus as being a very, very important first step to have a successful program launch as you begin reaching out to your students who are remote. Once you have identified those communities and you start to engage the communities during events and with prizes, this is where the relationship building comes in. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works of communicating and building relationships. But if you were just to run an esports tournament and never interact with the students and never have any type of engagement or relationship building, then you're missing out on a massive opportunity. Because once social distancing ends and students start coming back to campus, if we haven't really thought through what that transition looks like right now, then we've wasted a lot of time and effort and opportunity to engage with a new unique audience that when they come back to campus, nothing will have changed for them. And they'll just continue to go to their dorm room or continue to operate in their communities. And so part of the opportunity right now is that we can really begin to create relationships through events and through things like tournaments with prizes that can last much longer than COVID-19 and social distancing. And I kind of jumped ahead of myself, but really thinking through, how do you want to blend online and in-person events long-term? How do you want to blend community activities like viewing parties for professional esports games when they hit the world championships? Are you providing a space for people to aggregate and have pizza and enjoy it the same way that football fans enjoy the Super Bowl? But having a plan at this stage and being able to begin communicating that plan to students is what's going to really yield benefit long-term. And I really can't emphasize that enough. Now, there's a difference between digital recreation and esports. Digital recreation is a term that at GEEX we have kind of begun to use to explain what this difference is in the audience. So esports is typically focused on the higher level competitive individuals. So the students that are good at the game they play, they want to show how good they are by competing against either other players on their campus or specifically teams on other campuses. when we ran intramural basketball, we had an A league through a D league. A league were our people that just about could have made our varsity team. D league were the ones that like to dress up as superheroes every time they showed up for a game. And there is an audience for every single one of these types of communities. Or there should be a community for each of these audiences. Sorry, I said that backwards. But being able to establish the difference between your high competitive players, which is a significantly smaller number of students than those that would be interested in more casual competitive or social competitive type environment, where winning is great, but it's more about being able to interact and play with friends and have that communication and build those relationships. And so one thing that we have done is really tried to look at the digital recreation space and how communities can aggregate and how we can leverage those relationships within the programs that we're building. So it's important now to understand the gamer's current community experience, because if you're going to try and pull gamers not necessarily out of their existing communities, but draw them into a new community, you need to understand where you're pulling them from and what their typical interactions with the people around them are like. And so let's start off here. We have our, empowered gamer here that's on fire because they're just so good at video games. I don't know. It was the first logo that came up for gamer and I liked it, so we're going to roll with it. That gamer connects typically to other people through a communication platform called Discord. If Discord is a new word to you or a new concept to you, that is something you should spend some time looking at help documents or overview videos to understand what Discord is. Discord hosts 50 million active monthly users who do nothing else but join communities and servers so they can communicate with other players. They can talk to these players in real time while they're playing video games, no matter what the video game is. That's really its kind of where its starting point was and its big attractiveness. Recently, they've launched more features where you can stream and show your gameplay to other people on the Discord servers. Really, at its core, it's a very streamlined communication tool to be able to connect people together, make announcements, have discussions. Much of it is chat-based, like typing in the chat. And then there's also the ability to jump into voice channels and screen share and something very similar to what we do here with Zoom. So that's the first place that gamers typically will go to interact with their community. And once they've interacted with the community, then they play games. So they're going to Riot to play League of Legends. And Riot has its own gaming platform. And so you have to sign into Riot Games in order to be able to play their specific game. Activision Blizzard has games like Overwatch, and they recently launched Call of Duty Warzone, which has already showed itself to be a large competitor to Fortnite. You have games like Psyonix, which is Rocket League. Excuse me. Which is Rocket League. And if you want to play Rocket League, you can log in through a different platform called Steam, or you can play it on Xbox or PlayStation. And from there, the environment of how you play games on different game publishers' platforms gets even more complicated. So we have students gathering together for communication, then going to play the games that they like recreationally, and then you have the competitive tournaments that will be created on typically in the past, it's been created on platforms like Battlefy, Tournament.com, Challenge. These are esports tournament platforms. You find an event you want to participate in, and then you sign up and play. So that's where gamers have been up to this point. If a gamer wants to create content, they might stream to a platform called Twitch, which is owned by Amazon, and it's a place where people do live video broadcasts of themselves playing games. So now the GEEX approach to community management, we've really tried to reimagine how we're engaging with student gamers so that we can more effectively engage with I'm seeing some questions coming. That's awesome. Yeah, Ramon's going to gather questions on the chat, and then at the very end, we'll have, I'm going to try and wrap up here in just a couple minutes, and so we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So as a school, if you create a school hub on GEEX, it allows you to do community organizing, it allows you to do your core communication, it allows you to do event creation, and you draw your students into this hub, much like you do with IM Leagues or any other intramural platform. We do have a full integration with Discord, and so what that allows is for you to really connect your community of where you're aggregating the students into your primary mode of more advanced communication. Once you've brought them together, that's when you create events and create tournaments for the different games. So it's really creating a pass-through so that you connect your students together, and then you're able to create those events and have them move to the game platforms to participate. We also have a Twitch integration, so if students are streaming, then they are able to feature their broadcast to their local community. All right, so thinking about engaging the community, I've said a number of times, know what you're going to do after you connect to your community. That's probably one of the most difficult steps, but one of the most imperative to long-term success. Second, target student groups from your campus. Figure out who those students are that already have a vested interest in seeing esports grow, and then leverage that relationship to bring them in and actually have them help you build your program. If you have students that want to help build your official Discord channel, or you can integrate their Discord channel into an esports club page on your school hub, you're going to maximize the buy-in and see a much faster adoption rate from students instead of trying to convince them to shift from what they're currently doing into what you're doing. You're going to really draw them in. They're going to help you build a Discord server. They're going to help you build a GEEX hub. We are offering a free beta until June 30th during this time of social distancing. And another, well, I guess one more point on that. We really just don't want anyone right now to not have the tools or ability to engage the students. We want you to be able, and as Lance is saying in chat, he sees it more of reaching a social wellness aspect. Absolutely, like students in isolation that are having some type of mental health struggles that have no outlet to connect to other people. They have to have an outlet to develop relationships and have a place to talk. And so simply building these communication methods is going to allow those relationships to be maintained. Instead of using GEEX, if you're looking for just a way to create some events and kind of dip your toes in the water, you could use Discord to organize your communities and then place links to events on a tournament platform. The long-term impact of this is going to be that you're never really going to get a streamlined way to connect with all of the different communities on your campus. And as your campus begins expanding outside of just recreation, you're going to have a very divided communication strategy, across multiple platforms and multiple kind of digital assets. So we really do encourage coming up with a strategy that allows you to keep everyone connected in one place. So as far as next steps, if you are a solo adventurer, like my man Aragorn here, or Aragorn, wow, from Lord of the Rings, then feel free to go ahead. You can create accounts on GEEX, you can create accounts on Discord. I will go ahead and type these in chat here. GG registration and discordapp.com. There we go. And you can find help documents on both, and we have staff that are around and ready to help if you need it. If you are the individual that needs more of a raid party, then we've got our hobbits here. Got to have people to stick together and learn with and grow with. Then we have an email address set up just for people that have questions and looking to connect to others as they go through this process. So digirec@geeks.gg. Let me paste that here as well. We are going to be starting later this week. We'll be doing a weekly webinar from GEEX that will largely be Q&A, in helping schools both take their next steps as well as gathering ideas and feedback of what the current needs are, and figuring out how we as a platform can help during this time. We have developers that are constantly working to add features that schools are requesting, and that's one of the things that we want is we're really looking for partners that want to help cast vision about where the college esports space is going. That is the end of what is prepared. Let's jump into some questions here. We'll just start up here at the top. Will we give you the platform? So yeah, we're doing the free beta until the end of June. After that point, we're a subscription-based platform, so it's driven just like rec budgets are. There's a couple discounts we're going to be offering. If you qualify for one of those discounts, it will be 20 cents per enrolled undergrad for a year-long subscription. So it's priced off of your undergrad enrollment. Who are the individuals who generally help get digital recreation esports off the ground within recreation departments? Our campus has struggled with knowing who should lead these initiatives. Examples: intramural coordinator, wellness supervisor, or is it more based off of self-interest outside of a job description? That's an amazing question. So what Chad asks is extremely relevant, because so far in the esports, college esports space, it has pretty much always been driven by the successful programs have always been driven by an individual with direct interest in seeing a program grow. Now, as we've got commissionings from higher up saying, hey, we need to explore this, or we realize, hey, there's this audience, what am I doing to engage with them? It's beginning to fall into more of a traditional job description. The approach that we have had is that each school is very different in where it makes the most sense for their esports efforts to begin. If we think about the long-term vision of higher education and esports and digital recreation, there should be a number of departments that eventually intersect with gaming and esports. Your admissions departments should be running scouting tournaments for either a varsity program or just community tournaments to get local high schoolers involved, and then you bring them on campus for a live finals. Alumni relations should be looking at ways to host events that function as fundraisers so that they can connect to their alumni no matter where they are in the world, and have them participate in an on-campus event that you're running digitally, and then be able to give into the school through that medium. And then you have high competitive, you have recreation, you have student clubs. Our solution has been that on a school hub, we give the ability for you to create programs underneath that hub umbrella, and each of those programs can be organized and managed by their own group. So if you're an intramural coordinator and you're only responsible for running intramurals, you can create your hub, create your intramural program, and manage things that are going to be within your boundaries. And as other individuals or other departments get interested, then those programs are modular. You're able to customize them. So you just add a new program in, assign the administrative rights to someone that deserves them or needs them. Deserves is probably not a good word. Someone that is required to figure out how to run that program, and then they're off to the races without impacting the existing programs that are functioning. Let's see. Yeah, so Greg at Crichton. Oh, hey, Greg. I remember you from 2 years ago at the NIRSA convention. You guys have an amazing esports program and are involved in the esports or East Coast Athletic Conference, ECAC. We got some program staff overseeing esports at LSU. We've got sports program coordinators at Wichita, sports club and leaderships. All right, so how do esports fit within a department that has a mission geared towards fitness and wellness? Esports is, often condemned from the idea that it's a bunch of stationary people. The reality is it's a bunch of stationary people. That's, that is the challenge that we have to battle. When I led our competitive team, we actually worked out as a team with the physical therapy professors twice a week. As a team, so myself and my 10 recruits, we lost over 100 pounds in the first semester of our program being in operation. that requires dedicated staff as well as probably a varsity environment where you can encourage them or require them to exercise. For the larger student population, the way that I like to refer to this is that if I were to take a fitness professional that had never played a video game and attempt to get you to participate in esports, there would be a very large gap in learning curve that you would have to overcome to even begin to find out if you're interested in it or not. With many students who play a lot of video games, the idea of fitness and wellness is equally as foreign. And so we need to begin building these communication channels and engaging with the communities where they are, so that as that relationship develops, we can begin building bridges into things like physical health and wellness and creating an understanding for them in terms that they're going to be able to comprehend. But expecting someone that has played video games and maybe never played a physical sport in their life, and then expecting them to go into the gym is going to be met with a significant amount of resistance, not because they know they don't like it, but because they just have no frame of reference and it's very uncomfortable. So we've been doing a little brainstorming on ways that people can start to blend digital recreation with physical recreation. These have been some fun conversations with IM leagues. And one of my favorites so far is to run a blended league where you have a set of students that sign up on a FIFA, a soccer game roster to play each other. And those same students are also on like a 5v5 intramural soccer roster. And every week they play one game on the actual soccer field and one game digitally. And then you accumulate scores from both and blend them into results for your final champions or your final tournament bracket. We really need to begin innovating in how we connect digital natives into physical activity. And the way to most effectively do that with gamers is to start where they are, like we do with students in any other category, and then begin educating them on how to move forward. Let's see. For those of you that use Discord, you utilize bots to police improper language and hate speech. Let's get into that in like one of the future kind of webinars, and we can bring some Discord experts in. Ramon, who's on my team and here in this call, let's take a note of that, and we can set up one of the follow-up webinars to be specific to that. What's the best way to host private Fortnite tournaments for your students only? Do you have to be a creator with Epic? This is from Mitch. So the best way to host a private event, well, one, Fortnite, there's not really amazing integrations with Fortnite to have like 100 students drop in all together and have a private server. If you want to have a private server, that requires some special access. If you're running kind of the more traditional recreational type rule sets where students just jump into a random game together and then they win based on how they perform, you can create an event on GEEX that is only visible and only eligible to students that are on your school hub. That way it's not being kind of publicly put out there. But yeah, the server issue and being a creator with Epic is a very challenging discussion. Okay, so Tina, for this semester, since I'm totally new to gaming and have no clue, I'm glad this is helpful. What to do, but can I just put some registration on IM leagues and have them sign up for different gaming tournaments, have them connect on their own or report their winner to me and do a bracket of some type? So part of our partnership with IM leagues is working to figure out how to make this process as easy for admins as possible. We have some pretty neat integrations that will launch next fall, but are just currently not live, allowing you to cross over from one platform to the next, aggregate reporting data in the IM League's reporting tools. At its very basic level, what you're doing is creating tournament brackets and saying, hey, go play and you know, kind of let me know who wins. If you want to really take advantage of the opportunity, now is the time to put some real effort into building an aggregated online community for your gamers. And the events is really secondary, in my opinion. The events is what they do together, but the place where you build your community is where they really live together. And that's what's going to provide the long-term value. Yeah, IMLeagues has self-reporting features, and our tournament uses the same self-reporting features, so you just manage it as an admin. Let's see here. Shayna, good to talk to you. Where do we go for the webinars to learn more from Crystal? Oh, sorry, private question, but I'm going to share it with everyone because that's that's good. So the email address we have here, the digirec@geeks.gg, that's an email address you can reach out to, and we will go ahead and just say, hey, I'm interested in the webinars, and we're gonna place you on, kind of on our list for that. Also, if you go ahead and sign up on GEEX, so geeks.gg/registration, and create an account, we'll be doing outreach emails to all the school admins on the platform to promote these. So the difference between digital recreation and esports. Yeah, so digital recreation is more social or casual, where your skill level is going to be significantly lower than compared to esports, where your skill level is typically going to be higher. Right now, the industry pretty much puts everything underneath the label of esports. And so what we're trying to do is start to create some separation in the terminology so that we can define how we're reaching the mass of students and the kind of the larger group of students that play for fun. And with that, create programming specific to them as opposed to just serving the higher performing audience. Been an effort to increase fitness even while sitting weather. Is it stretching, using what is around them, or preventative wellness such as eye care, finger, wrist exercise? So one of the things that I personally have been testing recently, I got a standing desk, and I've tried gaming from my standing desk, and it is a challenge, but it is a very interesting challenge. There are a number of companies that are working to solve this problem that we have partnership conversations going on with. One is called Andromeda Entertainment. They are a virtual reality company, and they make games that are focused on both mindfulness as well as physical wellness. So thinking about integrating a VR, they have kind of like a turnkey VR package. So a VR package into your wellness center where people can come and play games that are much more physically involved. That's one way to kind of create a crossover with this audience. There are also a number of physical therapy professionals that have been focusing on esports wellness for the last couple of years. Ramon on my team, if you can make a note for us to also kind of place some resources around that. But there really is a good amount of kind of research where people have started moving away from like the secretarial studies of the 70s that have driven most of our ergonomics and started thinking about what are appropriate ergonomics and physical positioning for gamers that are going to have potentially long-term inflammation or small like micro movement repetitive injuries, which is people make jokes like, oh, do you have to worry about a sprained thumb? And it's like, not really a sprained thumb, but I mean, I'm almost 40, and my elbow, my mouse elbow kills me all the time because of having a really bad angle and playing hours and hours of video games. I also used to play a lot of racquetball, so maybe it was that too. But we, there is a need to look at what is the long-term impact of people that play a lot of video games. Taking the physical IM teams that started this semester, offering them an option to play digitally. One example of that, the NBA, since they paused their season, there's 17 NBA franchises that have an esports team for NBA 2K, and they've actually transitioned their season schedule into a digital schedule, mimicking the exact same pair-ups and matching for the rest of the NBA season with their NBA 2K teams, which has been a very unique way that they have engaged. What league or tournament formats are schools using? What prizes are you providing? So league and tournament formats, typically if you're wanting to run a single event or spread it out over a couple weeks like a league, the same type of formats that you would use on IM leagues, single elimination, double elimination, round robin, Swiss brackets, those are all really popular depending on the game. Some games like Super Smash Brothers it's a relatively short time period to play a match against someone. And Virginia Commonwealth University this past Friday ran a Smash tournament on the GEEX platform, and they basically ran it in real time. So as a match would finish, the bracket would move them to the next round, and they played through their entire double elimination bracket over a matter of a couple hours. I think that we need to do a little bit of just kind of real life testing with students right now and find out with the current environment, do they want to do short multi-hour, like one-day multi-hour tournaments to go from start to finish and have a winner? Or are they actually looking for something they can put on their schedule and say, you know, hey, at this time each day I get to be involved in this thing that's going on for my campus? That's a question that no one can answer with confidence, and we just need to try things out and see what happens and communicate and share with each other what the right, you know, what the best results are. As far as prizing, I've seen some schools logging the winners, and they're going to give them intramural shirts as they come back to campus. I have heard quite a few campuses have a massive surplus of intramural championship t-shirts. So this is a good way to figure out how to give some of those out once everyone comes back to campus. If you are running a more established program, there's ways you can try and connect to sponsors for free product. New programs, the market's really saturated, so reaching out and asking for mice and headsets and keyboards and those types of things is probably not going to bear a whole lot of fruit for the time you would spend pursuing it. But it's one of those things that if you're looking for ideas on types of prizing that you want to just purchase on Amazon and have it shipped to the winners, you know, whether it's mice and keyboards or controllers, things like that, then that is you know, that's something that we can definitely help you explore. So Greg from Crichton says, how would you suggest handling unsporting behavior, particularly over voice communication, since the school admins are not going to be in every game? I mean, toxicity in video games is a very real problem. One of the things that we have done on our platform to take first steps towards solving this problem is to put in a reporting feature that's directly linked to chat and conversations. Right now, all of those reports come to us as global admins, and we're in the process of building it so that any report from the students would come to you as a school admin so that you can see that directly and handle that. All of the accounts on the GEEX platform have their real names associated, as well as, you know, the school email address if they register. That's something that's a little different about us than your normal platforms, where they can just be a pseudonym and they can play as, you know, whatever they want to play. So removing some of that anonymity really helps. Providing or having a mode of accountability for them if there is a report that's founded really helps. And typically, I mean, most games you're not going to have students on a voice channel with someone on the opposing team. If it's a teammate that is treating them poorly on their own communication channels, then it's going to have to be some level of self-reporting. I think that one of the things as admins we have to do is be very clear in our community expectations of what's okay and what's not okay, and create a safe way for students to reach out and communicate that something has happened, so that they will take that step and kind of open the door to that discussion. I believe we have a few minutes left if there's any other questions. So I'm curious to know if any of you admins out there that have been running programs for a while, if there are problems or issues that you have come across or you know, just have seen as a potential issue that should be addressed within higher education or within an organization like ours, even if there's not an immediate answer for it. And while you think about that, Mike, can I put you on the spot with a question?
Sure.
Okay, surprise. So, Mike, I was wondering if you would share just a little bit about your experience in working with the esports club to help you build a program. Because what you have done in engaging that group has been nothing short of extraordinary. And I would say that you have a very high level of buy-in from your students, even though the recreational program is not completely launched yet. Would you mind kind of sharing that experience and some of the best practices you found?
Yeah. I mean, we were very lucky. We had the students come to us saying that they really wanted to see this. Actually, Caleb, he's on this right now. He was the student that came to us. And just kind of really wanted to push this forward. We knew there was already some interest on campus, so we connected with those student groups, and luckily all of our student leaders were really passionate about it and were really invested. So the areas that we weren't familiar with, they were able to help us with that and really build it out. I mean, from scratch, basically. We had very little. I mean, we had the sports leagues on consoles, but we hadn't really delved into any kind of PC gaming or any heavy esports titles. So we were very lucky to have the student body working with us, but we also knew it was going to take some time. Just because there was a League of Legends club doesn't mean that League of Legends is the only game that we need to pursue. We did a lot of outreach to, we did tabling events, we put out surveys, we presented in front of Greek organizations and other student orgs that had meetings, housing meetings, to make sure that we knew exactly what kind of titles the students wanted to see. And then we just started, we opened up our Discord, we launched a couple esports titles. So we had a League of Legends, we would have had a Rocket League and a Rainbow Six Siege league go through. However, with this coronavirus, other priorities have kind of moved a little bit ahead of those at this time. We're still looking to move forward with a more social, recreational thing to keep students connected. But I mean, it was really driven by the students and by student government. So if you're really looking for a backing and to bring that student influence into it, utilizing student government to come forward, and they have a lot of power at some universities. They can come in and say, we want this, do what it takes to make it happen. And then that gets administration to really back you as well. And that's both of those groups moving you forward is really helpful.
Thank you so much, Mike. Well, we're at the end of our time together. Thank you guys so much for joining in and listening to a little bit of a summary of where things are and where I hope we can see them go. It's really important that we work together as a higher ed community to figure out not only how do we engage with these students through this medium, but how do we begin directing the culture in a fashion that's beneficial to the goals of higher education. I see video games really as a medium that intersects technology and competition and community and social connectivity, and it has an amazingly powerful ability to reach people that we've not connected with in the past. Through innovation and through cooperation, we're going to be able to map the best possible path forward. And one of the commitments that that I want to make to each of you is that as a company, that is our primary goal. And if you ever have thoughts or insights and things that you need that you're not able to find or that just don't even exist yet, please pass those ideas on, because those are the things driving our development and really driving the way that our platform is going to evolve over the coming years. So if you would like to receive some emails from us and kind of get tied into some of the resources we have, participate in our next webinar, which we'll be sending out some announcements for tomorrow. That next webinar is going to be kind of a starter's guide to building out both your GEEX Hub and getting started on Discord. So really just taking those first steps to begin building an infrastructure for yourself. If you have any other questions, then also reach out to that DigiRec at GeeksGG website. And once you're ready, if you're interested, create a profile on GEEX at that registration link. But overall, it's been a pleasure having the opportunity to present and see some familiar faces on the webcams that I've been kind of scrolling through. It's nice to see you guys still up and running, even though things have been difficult and you're at your houses, and it's hard to connect to students right now. So just let us know if there's any way that we can help, and I hope you all stay safe. Bye. Thank you, everybody.